Hi there, beer nerds. How's it going today? I wanted to come at you today because there are some pretty significant events going on in the US right now, and those events actually have a pretty big impact on the brewing industry as a whole. So I wanted to come at you today while everything's fresh to just kind of get my thoughts out there on what the impacts of the United States federal government shutdown is on the beer industry, because as you can imagine, any industry that is pretty heavily regulated by the federal government is going to have a pretty big impact when it comes to the federal government shutting down. For those of you that aren't from the US, which is a significant portion of the audience actually, a government shutdown here in the US is basically when the government fails to reach a deal on how to spend its money, and a lot of the non-essential functions of the federal government stop until that money gets allocated to them again. So in terms of beer and brewing, unfortunately, a lot of that is viewed as non-essential, which, you know, it's a pretty essential part of my life, but I guess not everybody sees it that way. So when I was first thinking about this, I wasn't sure the industry would really get all that bogged down. After all, you know, you can still, you know, sell beer to customers. You can still market all the beer in the same way you did before. But the more I thought about it, the more I dug into it, I realized that there's kind of a lot of different impacts out there that really aren't so much measured in the process of just getting beer from brewer to consumer. The first one is that the Alcohol, Tobacco, Tax and Trade Bureau, or the TTB, is shut down as a non-essential function of the government. So what that means is that no new beer labels are going to be able to get approved by this board that usually approves these beer labels. So you're not going to be able to launch a new beer unless you already have it approved already. And until that comes back online, which thankfully or hopefully won't be too long. But until we hear otherwise, you know, all those label approvals and things like that are going to be delayed. And then once they do open up again, there's going to be a backlog. So most likely anything coming in shortly after that's going to take longer than estimated too. And so that can cost brewers some money when they have product ready to go, but they can't ship it out the door because their label's not approved. Another thing a lot of brewers here in the US have to do is they have to do various federal excise tax reporting, as well as reporting on just how much beer they're producing in general. So during a shutdown, the organizations that handle getting those reporting in or getting those reports processed is shut down, but brewers are still required to submit all the reports and pay all their taxes during the shutdown. So, you know, I guess it's okay. That's not a big deal. You know, brewers can continue to report and pay taxes as they're supposed to. But if there's any problems, any questions, any things that need to be clarified with the federal government, there's going to be nobody there to answer the phone for brewers. Another big one is actually loans. So a lot of times breweries have fallen under the Small Business Administration, or sometimes the Alcohol and Tobacco Trade Bureau even does some loans too, I found. And there's also, when you apply for a loan, you want to make sure you're registered with the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax Trade Bureau. And that's a big check that banks usually do when deciding whether or not to loan something to a brewery. They want to make sure, yeah, you are a legitimate brewery and you are legitimately registered with the federal government. But, you know, those checking systems, any small business administration loans, things like that, all shut down at this point. So in terms of even getting some capital, the beer industry could struggle because the federal government is shut down. And then, you know, finally, I know the Brewers Association and, you know, all the independent craft beer people have been trying to make a big push for excise tax reform and things like that in Congress. That's all out the window at this point. There's nobody, a lot of congressional staffs are viewed as non-essential when it comes to the federal government, so they're not working. And of course, you know, they're not going to be addressing the tax situation. So you know, that is out the window as well. So, we're not really sure how long this government shutdown will last. They never tend to last very long, so I'm not too worried about it. But there is going to be some backlogs of data, backlogs of processes that normally happen that are going to be impacted by this. So, at the time I recorded this video, and hopefully it's going to be live later today, government is still shut down. So I don't know when they're going to get it set up again. Hopefully it won't be too long. But at this point, brewers have to plan a little bit more carefully going forward, because the normal support and the normal administrations they have to deal with aren't functional right now. So regardless of what your political opinion is on the shutdown, who's to blame, whatever, honestly, you can go debate that on some other YouTube channel. But there's not really much debate that the beer industry is going to be impacted by this. Fortunately, in the meantime, I can still go out and buy beer today and drink beer and watch some football. So I guess that's not too much to complain about yet. Anyway, I hope y'all are doing great and have a great week, beer nerds. Cheers.